The contents of this lesson provides answers to the assignment. Submissions will no longer be given credit. You are still responsible for the information. So, this was a guided reading. The first section was just ask you guys to identify the key terms. I believe the directions either said after you read or as you read for the key terms. I know the questions for sure say after, and there is a reason for that. And that's because you need to make sure that you have all the context before you go in and try to answer the questions. We've been over this before, and I'm saying answer, and I'm really trying to stop saying answer and say response or respond instead, because answer gives you the impression that that is the objective, that I am assessing you on whether you can find answers, and I'm assessing you on how you respond to a text and how you are reading. This reading is a skill, and it's very easy to tell when you're not reading versus when you actually have read. So I'm going to go over these vocab terms very quickly. The first one was Reconquista, and if I'm gonna try to figure out a way to get it to where like you guys can annotate. I'm not sure in terms of like how. If I think you should be able to highlight things, but I know you guys can't copy and paste stuff. So before I think of a method for you to do annotations on here, I wanted to see what you're capable of in terms of what the restrictions are. And I know you guys can't add any. What are those called? You can't add any extensions to Google Chrome, so I don't know how we're gonna do that, but I'm gonna try to get it to where I can have you guys annotate, because that is gonna help you guys actually develop those reading skills. Um, so, like I said before, Reconquista was the war that was waged by Aragon, Castile, and Portugal to drive out the Muslims. It doesn't say war, but if you're on a conquest, you can infer that a reconquest. I mean, it's waging the reconquest, waging war is where I got that war from. These were supposed to be in your own words, which means they're supposed to be paraphrased and not written directly from the text. All right, the second one was Prince Henry the Navigator. I put that he was the founder of a school for navigation and that he directed the Portuguese exploration efforts into the Atlantic. Heads up, Prince Henry the Navigator will come up again next semester. He'll be one of the first things actually that comes up next semester, so he is a key person for sure. Bartolomeu Diaz, he was a Portuguese mariner who used clockwise winds to navigate around southern Africa. And Vasco da Gama, who was an explorer who also he used Bartolomeu Diaz's technique in order to reach India. Christopher Columbus. All right, so he was an Italian mariner from Genoa. He sailed for Spain, and Genoa is well, it's obviously Italy. But anyways, he sailed for Spain, and he accidentally discovered America while attempting to find a route to Asia. That is a detail that a lot of people missed later on, apparently, because they kept referring to. They thought that that's why the Spanish, that they were actually looking for settlements to colonize in the West Indies, and they weren't. They didn't know it existed. Anyway, so the first question was determine central ideas. What motivated the Portuguese to explore lands to the south and to the east? On the actual assignment, determine central ideas is red. That's because that is the prompt, that is the task at hand. When you see determine central ideas, if you don't know what a central idea is, I think that probably in the past, teachers may have referred to it as the main idea, because when we discussed it a little bit in class, people said that it's what the text is about. Well, it is, but it could be a part of the text, like it could be a specific passage, it could be the whole page, it could be a whole chapter. It just depends. And then But anyways, it asks you specifically what motivated the Portuguese to explore new lands. And we're on this page. So I go back. So in pink here, as you will see, I have some annotations. I underlined some things. My response was that Prince Henry the Navigator was passionate about exploration. He wanted to seek new trade routes and reduce the Muslim domination to trade. The Portuguese also wanted to spread Christianity to these new lands. Now, a lot of people in their responses, I saw a lot of people just focusing right here. Okay, and then I think it kind of threw some people off because the motivations of Prince Henry, it goes into detail here about Prince Henry, what he wanted to do, but you don't really see a ton about the Portuguese, although it does mention the Portuguese. It says, well, right up here, it says, that the Reconquista initiated this zealous crusading spirit for spreading Christian faith, which is where that part comes from in my response. And then it does focus on primarily, the rest of my response focus primarily on Prince Henry because that's primarily what is being discussed. That's the central idea here. And he is Portuguese. So in that Portuguese, we have the general Portuguese, and then we have specifically Prince Henry, who was Portuguese. So that's where the answer comes from. The text is structured so that you have to read it in order. So if this were like if this was a exam or a quiz and it was an all or nothing game and you had to have everything, you had to hit, certain points. You had to have this aspect of it and you had to have some details from here. If that were the case, and since you are being assessed on reading skills and your ability to determine the central idea, not to give me an answer, but to respond and to determine the central idea, then you're not going to get the point. If this is a 3-point response, then you get 0 because you didn't fully answer the entire question. You're not doing what you're supposed to do, which is reading and responding. History is about the reading and writing of history. I've gone through this since last year with you guys. Next, identifying supporting details. When you have a question, a prompt, a task that says identify supporting details, you should recognize that you are going to be focusing not only on those details, but also on the main idea, because the supporting details support the main idea. So the question is, what technological innovations enabled the European explorers to take long voyages? This is, again, something that would have gotten points taken off, or you would have gotten no points, because a lot of people said right here, it's easy to spot because in our heading we see technology. Our part of our question has technological, so we know it's going to be around here somewhere. And it says that they relied on several new devices: the compass, the astrolabe, and the quadrant, which I have in my response. However, this last section right here, explorers learn how to build sturdier ships, and they can travel longer distances. That is also a part of this. It's right here. It's in this section right here. It's called a caravel. The specific ship is called a caravel, and most people left that out because they're just looking for the first thing that they can find. They're not really reading. They're fishing for the answer. So that would have been wrong. The last question on this page is another supporting detail question, and it asks you, why did the Spanish choose to send voyages to the West? And this was one of the biggest key indicators to me that students were not reading, because, like I said before, I got a lot of people saying things like, because they were trying to find the West Indies. They were not trying to find the West Indies. That was not something that they were trying to do. And that also it still wouldn't answer the question, because it specifically says, why do they choose to send voyages to the West? Okay, so in our heading over here, we have Spanish mariners sail west. Huge indication that, of course, whatever we're going to put in our response is somewhere in here, right? It's not just in this section, however. It's a part of a bigger passage. It starts up here. The Portuguese dominated the southern and the eastern trade routes around Africa. We get to our next section. It says, by default, in the late 1400s, the Spanish looked westward into the open Atlantic. So it wasn't because they were specifically looking for the West Indies or anything like that. The reason why they chose to send, well, they really didn't choose. It's kind of a trick question. They didn't really choose to send voyages to the west. They didn't really have another choice because, as you can see, the Portuguese already dominated the southern and the eastern trade routes, so there was nowhere else for them to go. They had to go west. And so that should have been the response. They had to go west. And anyways, other than that, they were still looking for China. That's what everyone was looking for. Everyone was looking for China. No one knew that the Americas existed. The second to last question, I don't go over the last question here, but the second to last question is draw conclusion question, and it asks, how did Columbus and Spanish and Portuguese rulers view the original peoples of the Americas? This, I can't remember exactly what it looks like on because I put up it's linked, this assignment was linked to a bigger audio book type deal if you did not get a chance to complete the assignment. And I'm not sure what page it's on in that version. But on here, to be able to respond to this question, you're going to have to go several pages over, or two. So my response was the Spanish and Portuguese believed that the local people were ignorant, pagan savages. They believed the local people were servants who could easily be converted to Christianity. Now, on this page, I look at this primary source, Journal of Christopher Columbus, and I see that he says that they should be good servants, that he thinks that they would be easily made Christians, and that they didn't have a religion. It didn't appear that they had a religion, right? So I put some of those details into my conclusion. But if I keep reading after this page, I come to additional information and details that tell me that the Iberians and the Pope considered them pagans, them being the indigenous people in the Americas, without any rights. So I also include that here in my response. If you were not to include all this information, again, it would not be correct. And saying that, oh, I didn't see it, or oh, I didn't know, or whatever, I mean, there would be no excuse that would be valid, because at the end of the day, I'm like I said, assessing you, I know what you have done and what you haven't done, what you've read and how you read it, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be able to